Hey guys, what is going on? Jurgen from ZurGrinoSports here, and today we are coming at you with the February 12th edition of Smackdown Review. But quickly, before we get into it, quick self-plug time. If you'd like to support me and the channel, you can do so over at Patreon. First link in the description. If not, that's a-okay. You can follow me on Twitter in the description also. Be sure to let me know what you guys thought of Smackdown down in the comments, and at the end of the review, if you liked what I had to say, leave a like and subscribe. And yeah, but with all that stuff out of the way, let's get into the review. So, SmackDown was SmackDown. It was okay to me personally, just because I think some of the booking decisions they made weren't really sensible. And I'll get into them, of course. There wasn't anything that was, like outlandishly bad. At least not in my memory right now. Maybe when I run through the show, maybe there'll be something. But typically there isn't for SmackDown, because SmackDown's typically very good. So overall, it wasn't as good as it usually is for me. But it wasn't bad by any means. It was still a pretty decent show. But we started things off with a Roman promo, as we always have been. This is just a minor thing. It's becoming a little bit formulaic with Roman now. His promos are still great. What they're doing with him is still fantastic, but he starts and ends every show, every week, no matter what. And in one hand, that plays into his character. He is the show. It revolves around him. So it plays into him being the show. But also from a viewing perspective, you kind of get like a Groundhog Day feel kind of thing, where it's like, oh, this is the same show. It's not really in a bad way right now. I just think that it's starting to get noticeable that it's him at the start, him at the end, every single week without fail in some capacity. So I think if they continue doing this for long enough, it might start to diminish the act a little bit. But again, it's not a big thing. It's just a minor thing that I thought I'd point out that I have an opinion on. But the promo was fine. Pierce was like in the corner waiting for Roman kind of thing, or you know what I mean? And Roman's like, why are you over there, man? Come over here. I don't wait on you. You wait on me. He says that Pierce doesn't have the authority to do anything to Roman. He's there to wait on Roman. Roman said he's like the sun because everything revolves around him. And he says, he doesn't wait on Pierce, and he sure as hell doesn't wait on Edge. Speaking of Edge, he saw last week that Edge doesn't want Roman. Because when he looked in his eyes, he saw that he was afraid because Edge knows what he'll do to him. Roman says that he'll beat him so bad he'll have to be put on a Legends contract and be an ambassador, essentially saying he's going to beat him so bad he's going to retire him again. And basically, he's coming out there and he's like, okay, why are you out here with this contract, Pierce? And Pierce is like, hey, Heyman's known about this for a week. I've had it ready for a week or something like that. But he wanted it to do it this way. So here you go. You are going to be defending the championship in the Elimination Chamber, just like Drew McIntyre. Roman says, Paul, you handle this. And then Paul does this whole, big spiel kind of thing about how Roman's like the guy. And basically says in Roman's contract, it's stated that Roman has to defend the championship at Elimination Chamber, not in the Elimination Chamber. So Pierce can put whoever he wants in the chamber, and the winner will get a title shot for the Universal Championship that same night against Roman Reigns. Pierce isn't happy about it, you know what I mean? He says, I can see you're not happy about it, but what are you going to do? You're going to fire Roman this close to Mania? I mean, take a look at how Mania was last year when Roman wasn't on the card. I'm pretty sure it was the lowest attended Mania in history, which is just brilliant by Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman. Fantastic stuff by Paul Heyman there. Nice little, wink and nudge kind of thing. And, Yeah, so basically Pierce is like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm not happy about it, but it looks like that is what I'm going to have to do. So there will be qualifying matches tonight, but there are two people that I can think of right now who don't need to qualify. The first man we have seen take Roman to his limit, which is Jey Uso, and then the second man, he gets out of the ring at this point. The second man is Kevin Owens. And then Roman kind of follows him out of the ring after that point, gets all intense in his face, and Paul Heyman's like, hey, listen, on your own terms, on your own time, cool it. Just a suggestion, but like, cool it, back off, kind of thing. And then they kind of back off and go to the back. And then we got a vignette for Seth returning, and then we went to commercial. Now, overall, the promo was fine. They did what I thought they'd do. I think I've mentioned it in the reviews before, but they did what I thought they'd do when they had the chamber be for number one contendership, because Roman would use his pull or something to get out of defending it. I expected them to do that. I didn't expect them to do the winner of the chamber gets him that same night. I expected them to have him face somebody else. Probably Shinsuke would have been nice, and then have him face the chamber winner at Fastlane. What I think they'll do now, I'll mention at the end because I don't want to spoil the qualifiers before we get there, I guess, but I don't know. By the time this comes out, you probably know the results. I'm assuming you probably just want to hear my opinion, I guess, for some reason, because I don't know. I don't think I'm that important. But anyways, yeah, the promo was good. I still don't like that some people just get put in and some people have to qualify. But it's better than Raw that there's actually reasoning other than, hey, they're 5 former champions. Kevin Owens has unfinished business, and he's, taken Roman to his limit, and Jey has taken Roman to his limit. It's still not perfect. I would rather have qualifiers for all 6 slots kind of thing, or, if somebody has a rematch, but they have to do the chamber because it's a pay-per-view, give them a spot because of their rematch clause or something. Just make it so somebody has earned or deserves the spot in the chamber. You know what I mean? Just being like, hey, you've taken him to his limit. It's better than just being like, hey, you're in the match. And it's good that they're explaining why. It's just, it would have been better with actual qualifiers for every slot. Unless, again, there was a number one contendership already earned or a rematch clause or something like that, that somehow, makes it make sense. Or like if there was a multi-man match, you know what I mean? And then, and the champion beat like one of the people, but they didn't beat the other person, and Chamber's next, then the person they didn't pin in their title match kind of gets in kind of thing because he didn't lose his title match in the multi-man, you know what I mean? So yeah. So I'm still not really happy about that too much, but I'm not upset about it. As much as I was on Raw, because on Raw it was just kind of like, hey, you guys used to be good. Fuck it, go for it. You know what I mean? And this week there was a couple qualifiers which I like. I wish it would have been 6, spots qualified for, but yeah, it's just the 4 because 2 were given. At least they were explained, I guess. But yeah, overall, good promo. Roman, abusing his pull to get out of defending in the chamber makes sense for his character, and it's good evolution of his character and advancement of his character. Whatever. We had Sonya and Pierce talking backstage, where Sonya's like, "Hey, you stood up to Roman. Good job, man." And Pierce is like, "Yeah, listen, okay, we got to figure out who's qualifying." And then Sonya's like, "Way ahead of you. We have this tag match coming up, which is Dominic and Rey versus Corbin and Sami Zayn. How about we make that a qualifier where both members of the winning team get into the match?" Pierce is like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. Let's go do it." And Sonya's like, "Already ahead of you, brother. Took care of it. Everybody's been notified. They all know what's going on," kind of thing. And then we had Dominic and Rey versus Corbin and Sami. Sami interrupts his own entrance, says that Greg doesn't need to introduce him because everybody knows who he is. And he says that after they helped Big E beat him for the championship, WWE is now making Sami earn a spot that he deserves in the chamber. He says, he usually doesn't get along with Corbin, but this week they have something in common, which is the injustice done upon against them by others in the company, meaning, Dom and Rey to Corbin, and then Sami with the whole entirety of the organization, which is awesome. I still love his conspiracy theorist gimmick. And then, he says that the documentary crew will be with him watching the ref because he knows WWE would love for the poster boys of the Latin American expansion to win and be in the chamber. So to begin with, I don't like any four of these people being in consideration for the chamber match, to be honest. So this match, immediately, I was kind of not too happy with. Corbin hasn't really, and I like everybody in the ring too. That's the thing. Sammy, if you guys have been watching the reviews, I love Sammy and what he's doing right now. If you've been watching the reviews, I'm a big fan of Corbin. I say every week how people who genuinely hate him, they're getting worked. It's just, he's a good heel. And then Ray's obviously a legend, and then Dom's pretty good for how little experience he has in the business. But I mean, he has a great teacher, obviously. So, Sammy is like kind of acceptable to be in there, just because you probably need to get him away from the Intercontinental title scene now, because he's had multiple opportunities that he hasn't been able to capitalize and win back, and he can use that to play into his conspiracy theorist gimmick. But at the same time, the reason he's not in the Intercontinental title picture anymore is because he's just kept losing. So the fact that he was given a qualifier out of a random match that was already booked is kind of meh to me, given his current his win-loss records and stuff in recent weeks. If they had done something different with him, having him win matches, then that's another thing. But at the same time, you can't really do the conspiracy thing with him winning matches. So I'm fine with him losing the matches to advance his conspiracy theorist gimmick, put some people over, stuff like that. It's a good spot for him right now, as kind of like a buffer period for Sammy, and he's getting himself over too. It's just I don't really like him in the chamber. Corbin hasn't really done much. He's kind of been in like mid-card to lower mid-card feuds, and the same goes with Dom and Ray because they've been with Corbin. So none of the people in here, Sammy half kind of I would be okay with being in here, but the other three I really don't like being in there. Prior to the match beginning, I thought, I'm not a fan of any four of these guys really being in, but Dominic and Ray starting the Elimination Chamber as the first two and having to fight each other would be an interesting story element to that chamber match. So it'd be like kind of okay, but it's still not really great. But after a little, after the match, there's a little sequence which ends in Sammy pinning Dominic off of a haluva kick, which grants Sammy and Corbin spots in the chamber. The match quality was good. Corbin's good, Sammy's good, Dom's decent, and then Ray's very good. So the quality itself was fine for the length of the match. I can't really say the right people won because neither of the four are the right people to be in the chamber for me. So whoever wins is the wrong result in my opinion, just because I don't think any of them should be in the chamber to begin with. But I guess Sammy and Corbin are in the chamber. Match quality was fine, just booking decisions. I don't really agree with it too much with them being the ones fighting for that spot. We had a Sonya and Pierce thing with the Dirty Dogs backstage, where basically the Dirty Dogs say, hey, listen, think of the exposure you'll get by putting us in that chamber. Your tag team champions, each of us get a spot in there. And then Pierce and Sonya say, you guys can earn it against Cesaro and Bryan later tonight. I immediately had an issue with this because it's either way, it's kind of shit who wins in one aspect or another. And I'll get to that later when we talk about that match. This was a production thing that I just really didn't understand. Big E made his entrance. We went to commercial. We came back from commercial, and there was Sasha talking with Kalisto backstage. Reginald pops up with some champagne, and she's like, oh, hell no, you're not here again. He's like, listen, I came to apologize, blah, 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 blah. And then she's like, okay, send Carmella my regards. He gives her the champagne, and then her and Kalisto kind of laugh at him or whatever, while he kind of looks back with like a wry smile, like, hey, yeah, I'm winning her over, dude, after she fake flirted with me a few weeks ago or whenever it was. And then that was the segment. And then they played a video package of the last Big E title defense, and then Big E cut a promo. why the fuck did you have Big E make his entrance if he had to wait like 5-10 minutes to fucking do his promo? He's just chilling in the ring. And I get that they can play around with this production elements and stuff like that with no crowd there, because then you don't have a crowd just sitting there bored, just with a man in the ring just vibing. But like, how does that make sense? Even with kayfabe, why would somebody in a legitimately run show schedule like that to have just a guy in the ring waiting for no reason? But anyways, Big E cut his promo. He said he's still standing like Tom Brady because somebody won the Superb Owl sometime in the recent past. Shit sport. I don't really care about it. That might get some of you hot, but I don't care. Garbage sport. When the halftime show commercials are the reason people watch your sporting event's pinnacle of the year and not the actual sporting event, your sport's shit. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion, of course. But yeah, we got, he made a Brady reference because Brady was drunk and that video went viral and whatever. He also made a Gorilla Glue thing when he said that when he won the title, he made a vow to be a fighting champion, and that was a vow as strong as how Gorilla Glue ties to somebody's hair, because somebody used Gorilla Glue for like their wig or something. I don't really know the situation. Somebody used Gorilla Glue to put their actual hair or their fake hair together or something like that, and then when they tried to take it off, it caused physical damage or something. I don't know. Some pop culture references that I'm too much of a grumpy old man yelling at a cloud at the ripe age of 23 years old to notice. So my life's going great. I'm a grumpy old man at a young age. So yeah, he, you know, what the fuck did I write there? Oh, he says he wants to put, brother, I can't read my own writing. Right, okay. He said that he wants to put Sammy and Apollo behind him, and, you know, what do you know it? Apollo's music hits, he interrupts, says he can read Big E, and he says that Big E's going to issue an open challenge, and, you know, Apollo's taken him to his limit, so who better to accept? So Apollo accepts. Big E says, well, you're half right. I'm going to open an open challenge to anybody here, anybody in the arena, on the roster, Michael Cole, this, that, anybody except you. And then Apollo's like, oh, come on, man. You wanted to be a fighting champion, right? Defend the championship, blah, blah, blah. And then Big E lowers his mic to kind of make it like a personal thing. Like he's like, you know, enough of like the TV show, enough of Smackdown, whatever we're doing. Like we're out here to entertain, but I'm going to put the mic down and speak to you man to man on a personal, like shoot level kind of thing, insinuation, and be like, listen, you've tried and tried again. You haven't succeeded. I've given you chances and you haven't taken them. Somebody else should get the chances. You should go back to catering and do whatever. Apollo's like, oh, you're going to tell me to go back to catering, this and that. They start arguing, whatever, which ends up with Big E saying, you and me are done. We're done. Apollo's like, no, we're not done. And then he brings the mic back up. He's like, bring out my next opponent, which ends up being Shinsuke Nakamura. So we had Big E versus Shinsuke for the IC title. We went to commercial, and then we came back like mid-match or at the start of the match or whatever. It started during the commercial. Cruz was at ringside, and he'd like get up on the apron to cheer for Shinsuke, to like encourage him to get up after an attack or whatever. And after a little bit of time, we had Cruz come in and dropkick Big E to cause a DQ, and then head up the ramp and whatever. The match wasn't really long enough to give like a proper, oh, it was good, it was bad. It was pretty short. We didn't get too much of it. I've mixed thoughts on this. I like the Apollo heel turn subtlety, you know, that they're doing. I guess attacking Big E isn't really subtle, but he's not like fully heel yet. He's like, hey, listen, I'm very passionate, so my passion will kind of like get me to do whatever. So it's not a full heel turn yet, I don't think, because a random drop kick and then leaving the ring isn't really heel turn to me. You know what I mean? It's a drop kick. If you're going to have somebody turn heel, hit your finisher, hit them with the belt, hit them with a chair, hit them with something else, hit them with a drop kick and then beat them down and then do your finish. Something, if it's a heel turn. You know what I mean? Him drop kicking was pretty much, hey, I'm passionate. I want that title. I don't want anybody else to have that title but me. So when you defend, I'm going to, you know, get up in your shit. Right, pretty much is what's going on there. So, yeah, we've got So we've got that aspect, which I think is fine. As I think it could still go with Apollo aligning with Roman and then fully turning heel, and then we could do that and then have him and Big E as a full-on heel thing. The only problem with that is they've done Big E and Apollo a lot recently, so it's kind of like you're beating a dead horse eventually. So hopefully the heel turn and gimmick change kind of could freshen it up a bit. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. So the heel turn, hinting to the heel turn and stuff like that, I have no problem with. That's good. I like the touch of Big E lowering the mic to get on a personal man-to-man, fuck the show, this is like shoot kind of thing, which obviously it's not a shoot, but like that's the insinuation. I like that a lot because it makes it a lot more personal. And personal rivalries always, they have a capability of doing really well. The issue I have here is that Shinsuke gets the title match. Well, I have multiple issues, but the first one is that Shinsuke gets the title match because Shinsuke, for me, should have been in the chamber. They had him do the gauntlet, which then Roman screwed him over. Right, that's that happened. It's like, oh hey, we're gonna push Cesaro and Shinsuke. Isn't that great? And then Cesaro renewed his contract, and they're like, okay, so we're gonna turn him face instead. And then Shinsuke, guess what? We were going to push you, but not anymore, because we were going to make Cesaro heel, but then he renewed his contract, and now he's face, which I have no problem with Cesaro being face. They booked him well later, which we'll get to, which is long overdue. He should win a championship sooner or later, a world championship. He should have won 1 year ago probably, but that's the case for a lot of people in the WWE. The people who don't need the championships win them, and the people who deserve them and should win the championships don't get any. But it is what it is. Vince McMahon's stuck in the 80s, but I don't like Shinsuke getting the Intercontinental title match because that's a demotion. They had him pretty essentially win a WWE Championship #1 contender gauntlet, and then they didn't pay it off. Maybe they didn't pay it off because Jay got COVID, or he was in contact with somebody with COVID and he had to stay home for 2 weeks. Maybe that's kind of what happened. I don't really know. But they gave him the Edge Association rub because they had him, talking to Edge last week, I think it was. So they were like teasing, pushing Shinsuke, not Sheamus. He's on a different brand. He wasn't on the go home to Royal Rumble though. I just don't like Shinsuke being put in the Intercontinental title match because it just demotes him from a push that I thought he was going to get, because they gave the signs that they were going to do it, which is unfortunate because that would have been good, because Shinsuke's fucking amazing. He's another person who should have won the WWE Championship. They gave him, they had him feud with Jinder for the championship, and then they should have had him beat AJ at Mania for that title. They should have had him beat Jinder to begin with, but, they didn't do that, and then they went and had him lose to AJ, turn him heel, and then have him lose to AJ a few more times, except for a match to determine the stipulation, which I think Shinsuke won that match on Smackdown, which was incredible, if I remember correctly, and then he just lost the match that he picked the stipulation for. So they didn't really do anything for Shinsuke. I liked the heel turn a little bit because the no speak English thing was a good thing, commentary, but this is like years ago though. This has nothing to do with now. I'm just upset that Shinsuke hasn't gotten that big push that he should have gotten. But basically, I'm not happy with Shinsuke being in the Intercontinental title match just because it's a demotion to the mid-card, upper mid-card division instead of the main event division, essentially. Another thing that I don't like is they weren't given time. I would have liked it, if they were given time, because they could have had a good match. As good as Shinsuke would allow it to be, though, because when Shinsuke doesn't care, it's apparent in his appearances, let's say, when he's not really fully into the idea. But like, he can still put on a good match even when he's kind of like half interested. But it's the interference that's kind of the issue for me, because they just do it so often. I'm not like, it makes sense when Sammy does it, right? Because Sammy's already a heel. It wouldn't make sense for Apollo to attack Big E because they haven't turned him heel yet. Unless that was a heel turn, then that's a very anticlimactic heel turn. So either they really poorly executed the heel turn, or they didn't turn him heel and had him do a heelish action as a face, which doesn't make sense, and there's no reasoning for it. You know what I mean? If you want, they booked themselves into a bit of a corner because they made an Intercontinental title match. Shinsuke can't win because Big E shouldn't lose it yet. So they put Shinsuke into a match that he can't win. Logically, it would be a bad decision to have him win. You put into a match Shinsuke, who shouldn't lose clean, right? But then 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or however long ago it was, you already had an interference finish to a championship match, the Intercontinental Championship match, when Sammy got involved. So it doesn't really make sense. They're just like over relying on interference, in my opinion. So a couple issues there, nothing too major. It's just like more minor stuff. They showed a Seth vignette again. And then the locker room started exiting, to the ring to appear at ringside kind of thing as I flip my page. That definitely got caught by the mic because that was loud. Okay, then we had Seth return. The whole roster was ringside. He talks about how it was good to be back, how a lot has changed since he's sacrificed himself at Survivor Series, and he knew it would. But the biggest change has been him. He became a father. His daughter changed him, and through that change, he obtained a new perception, which led to a new vision. He looks around him and he sees one of the most talented divisions. Whatever. But where does he fit into it? After some reflection, it becomes clear to him that the great leader, Seth Rollins, needs to, the SmackDown needs him as a great leader kind of thing to keep SmackDown to be great and be more great than it already is, because he put over how great SmackDown was. The roster starts leaving. He goes again on his, Messiah stuff, says to embrace the vision, all that stuff. And then he kind of puts his arms out. The lights are kind of dimmed at this point. The lights go back up. He looks around the ring. Nobody's there except for Cesaro. Seth starts saying to Cesaro ringside that he knew he'd see the vision. And Cesaro says that nothing has changed at all, not one bit, starts to leave. Seth jumps out of the ring, chop blocks him, beats him down. Refs come down to break it up. He's still trying to get at him. Bryan comes down, sends Seth kind of running to the other side of the ring. Seth stares like a hole through Bryan and Cesaro, probably Cesaro mostly. And then that's kind of the end of the segment. We had an Elimination Chamber promo, where they just, talk about the match and show previous footage of the matches and stuff. The Seth promo was good. I think he did that. I wasn't watching Raw when this would have happened, but I think he did the same thing on Raw when he started the Messiah gimmick, when he was like, hey, everybody join me, and the whole roster kind of left. I don't know if maybe they had Ray be like, nah, and then he attacked Ray to start that thing. I don't know if they just copy and pasted what he did on Raw, but I'm pretty sure on Raw he did a thing where everybody was ringside and he's like, hey, join me, and they're like, nah. So I think they just copy and pasted that to some degree, but again, I wasn't watching. I just kind of faintly remember something like that potentially happening. So if I'm wrong, let me know. If not, then I guess they kind of reused that. They did a misdirect, obviously. They teased him turning face because he had a daughter, and he was like, hey, I'm still a piece of shit, dude. So they kept him heel. So they teased the face turn and then kept him heel, which is fine. If he can put over Cesaro at Mania, all for it. All for it. Cesaro versus Sheamus. Sheamus again. Why am I saying Sheamus with these S names, brother? Seth and Cesaro at Mania, with Cesaro winning clean, would be fantastic. It would solidify Cesaro as a main event guy, which would be incredible. So, yeah, we get that. The promo itself was fine. I like. It was nothing special, of course, but it does point out who his feud is going to be, and it's either going to be Cesaro or Bryan or a combination of both, kind of thing, which I think is completely fine, especially if we get Cesaro winning clean at WrestleMania, because that would put Cesaro over huge. and then it makes it easier to put him into main event title pictures, stuff like that. Then we had Bayley versus Liv with Ruby ringside. They showed Tamina and Natalya watching backstage for some reason, maybe to feature them on the show because they're worried people will forget about them. Rightfully so. They're not very entertaining. At some point during the match, Billy came down with like a new and improved resume. With like hearts on it for like Valentine's Day themed shit, and tried to get Ruby back on board. Ruby kind of like turned around and like knocked the resumes out of her hand kind of thing. Liv was distracted by this in the ring. She got her eyes raked by Bayley, who then did Bayley's finish, and then beat Liv. I don't like this. I didn't like it last week. I think it was last week, maybe the week before, when they had Ruby take the pin. I don't like it this week. Billy costing Liv and Ruby matches is not it. And even if it was it, only do it for like a month or a few weeks. You know what I mean? It's been like 2 months now that they've been doing this exact same thing. Billy comes out. Billy costs them the match. Billy apologizes. Billy comes out. Billy costs them the match. Billy apologizes. And Billy's doing well to be entertaining while doing this. It's just the net result is a negative. Because yes, Billy's getting over in her, resume role, but you're also not burying, but you're not helping two very promising people on your roster. Bayley had a 380-day reign or 3-something-day reign. She was champion for a year, or 412-day reign or something like that. She had a very long title reign, okay? She was the women's champion forever. You don't need to have Bayley picking up distraction victories against Liv and Ruby. She can afford to take some losses to put people over. Or, I don't know, have her beat Natalya, or have her beat Tamina, or have her not beat Liv and Ruby, because Liv and Ruby should be getting more opportunities. They should be the tag team champions, by the way, the women's tag team champions. Wholeheartedly believe that. It's not... You don't need Bayley getting distraction victories against Liv and Ruby to build her up after one loss to fucking Bianca. Also, Bayley lost to Natalya before she beat Bianca in their shit, I'm pretty sure. Natalya can get a win over Bayley, but Liv or Ruby can't? Are you kidding me, man? Like, come on. I really don't like that. It's just, it doesn't really do anything for anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really like it. And I think I mentioned it last week. The women's divisions are too shallow. There's not enough women on each roster to be able to build people up because you have like 6 women. You don't have 6. How many are there actually? Bayley and Sasha, Bianca and Carmella is 4. Then you got Billy who's 5, Liv and Ruby who's 6 and 7, Natty and Tamina who's 8 and 9, right? You have 9 women on the roster. One of them has to be the women's champion, right? So she can't really lose. How many of them are face? 2 of them, which is Liv and Ruby, and then Bianca, which is 3, and then maybe Billy, which is 4. It's just you have such a small pool of, besides the champion. If you take the champion and who the champion's feuding with, that leaves 7 people. So at any given time, when the champion is not involved and they're feuding with somebody, that gives you a pool of 7 people who need to put each other over while simultaneously keeping themselves over. It's not self-sufficient. It's just a revolving door of people winning and losing 50-50 booking, or 1 or 2 people bury the rest of the division. So they should either put more women on each roster or combine the divisions and have them on one roster or something like that, just because you have issues like this where, Liv and Ruby, they should be getting wins. Bayley needs to be on the show though, but who can she beat? She can't beat Bianca. Bianca just beat her. Who are the other faces? Oh, Liv and Ruby. So Bayley needs to beat faces. The only faces on the roster for her to beat are people she shouldn't be beating. They need to beat heels. They only have 2 people that they can beat because Carmella and Bayley should not be losing. It's just, it's not an ideal division, really, in terms of just the number of wrestlers in the division. So I don't know. Again, though, my main thing is Bayley doesn't need to get heat back by doing distraction wins against Liv and Ruby. She doesn't need it. You know what I mean? Just have them beat Bayley or something. You know what I mean? Like, she can take a loss. Or just have them beat Natalya and Tamina. Why are they just backstage watching? Let them put people over. They're not good. Nobody wants to see them on television, except for losing. Like, just let them lose. I don't know. They had a Cesaro and Bryan backstage interview. I didn't actually watch this because I had something going on, so I wasn't able to pay attention. But I think they asked about Seth, and I think the interviewer asked, like, are you still going to be in the qualifier or something? And Cesaro was like, oh, hell yeah, or something. I don't really know. Again, I had something going on, so I couldn't really pay attention. We had Profits versus Alpha Academy. Profits had a pre-match kind of like earlier in the day promo. Once again, I had something going on, so I couldn't pay attention to that. I was able to pay attention to the Alpha Academy one, though, which showed them training. It showed Otis doing a discus clothesline to a punching bag, which Gable had a waist lock on, which he would then German. And then he's like, all right, let me see them hips do those squats. He's doing the squats. Gable gets a fire extinguisher, starts blowing the smoke from the fire extinguisher. He's like, yeah, we want the smoke. We want the smoke. It was really funny. The match was great for the time that they were allotted. I would have liked it, man, if these guys could get like, if Alpha Academy versus Profits, give them like a 15, 20-minute pay-per-view match, it'd be great. Especially if you just have Gable kind of doing most of the in-ring work kind of thing, to do like the technical wrestling part, and then you can get Otis in for kind of like the high spots and, you know, the worm and shit like that, and the big moves and stuff like that. The match was good, really good. Near the end of the match, Otis does the caterpillar. Otis does the caterpillar onto Dawkins. Then he tags in Gable. Gable's like, okay, new move, go shoot off the ropes, and German, whatever. Otis goes to shoot off the ropes. Montez, who had been thrown to the outside earlier, hops up onto the apron, drops down the ropes. Otis tumbles to the outside. And basically, they end up beating Gable. Dawkins does a move to Gable, which was called like the initiation or inauguration or something. Cole called it something like that. And then Montez hit his frog splash, which is fucking incredible, by the way. One of the best frog splashes I've ever seen. Definitely the best one in the game right now. And then they pick up the win against Gable. This one I'm kind of split in two minds about also. So The Street Profits held the championships for almost a year, whatever it was, 320 days, something like that, whatever it was, right? Then they lose the titles to Dolph and Rude. Yeah, fine, no problems with that. That's cool. Then Sonya tells them, hey, let's give some other guys some opportunities, you know what I mean? And then you can get your opportunity when you're 100%. 1 week goes by. Dirty Dogs weren't booked, I think, because Rude wasn't there, and I think that was the week that they did Ziggler and Cesaro. Then I think they didn't do anything again. Then last week they had Alpha Academy, so Gable and Otis, versus the Dirty Dogs, and they lost, which makes sense. The champions won. And it wasn't a title match. You don't really need to have them beat the champions non-title. That made sense. I think Gable took the fall, though, which I had an issue with, because Gable shouldn't be the one taking the falls, in my opinion. Because once again, I'll say it every week. I don't give a fuck. Gable is Kurt Angle 2.0, and the fact that they don't see it boggles my mind. So then this week they face the team that just lost to the tag team champions, of course, because there's no other teams in the division. And then they beat them, and they're number one contenders again, because I think Cole said that there were title implications in this match. So Sonya's like, hey, you're not getting a rematch because we have to build other tag teams. And then they precisely did the opposite of building other tag teams. They gave the Alpha Academy 2 losses in a row. And Gable took them both because Gable got pinned this week, and he's the one who got pinned last week. So Gable and Otis are entertaining. Gable being the trainer makes sense, and it's a good gimmick, especially for Otis, who kind of lost his way. That gimmick makes sense. Have them beat the Street Profits, just like Bayley. They were champions for almost a year or whatever it was. They can take a loss without losing credibility. You had them strong for a year. They can take a loss to Otis and Gable. You know what I mean? But then again, Otis and Gable just lost, so there's no heat in a rematch. They just need more tag teams, man. That's kind of what it comes down to. So maybe stop splitting them up every week, Vince. Or if you are going to split them up, actually give them singles pushes instead of just randomly putting them in makeshift tag teams like a month later when you're like, oh, yeah, no, I have a new toy now. I don't care about that one anymore. You know what I mean? So, like, Profits winning isn't really needed, but at the same time, if you're gonna give them the win, just have Otis take the pin. You know what I mean? Like, why are you making Gable the one who takes the pins? Gable takes the pins, doesn't get pins. Otis will get pins, assumingly, and then not take any pins. It's not you have a second incarnation of Kurt Angle on your hands, and you're not seeing it. It hurts my brain. It hurts my brain. The absolute minimum point in the card that Gable should be is either tag team champion or upper mid-card U.S. title picture, or it's the Intercontinental title on Smackdown, right? Intercontinental title picture for Gable should be his minimum. Somebody else they have on the roster whose minimum should be that mid-card title picture, Buddy Murphy. Guess what? He's not featured at all because apparently they were going to do him and then the Mysterios versus the Forgotten Sons, or the Knights of the Lone Wolf or whatever. Then Cutler got released because he got COVID or something. I don't know, man. Vince is weird. I really don't get it, man. I really don't get it. I just don't. But it is what it is. The Profits were celebrating on the stage, and then Sasha's music hits. She starts making her entrance. They start dancing all together and stuff like that. Whole lot of blue. The stage was blue. The lights being shown were blue. Sasha had an all blue outfit, and the Profits were wearing all blue. There was a lot of blue in that image. So that was interesting. Talk about being on Smackdown, definitely with all that blue. Then we had a promo from Sasha saying how everybody's talking about Bianca and her decision. Says she likes Bianca. She's like a little big sister or a big little sister to her. But the one choice that makes sense for the EST is me, which was clever wordplay there. Bianca comes out, says she sees she sees Sasha. She sees the accomplishments, all that stuff. She likes her too, but Sasha's not the boss of her. Wordplay. I like it. Then Nia and Shayna come out, and I was like, oh, why is Nia's music playing? And then I remembered she's allowed to ruin SmackDown with her presence because she's the tag team champion and they can go anywhere. So why don't they go on SmackDown next week and drop the titles to Liv and Ruby, please, man? Nia called them insufferable, saying that with their two big egos, it's a wonder that they can both fit in the same ring. She says, who cares who Bianca will choose? Shayna's like, yeah, that same night you won the Rumble, we became two-time tag team champions. Why isn't anybody talking about us? Sasha's like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Runs footage of Naomi beating Shayna, and then she's like, oh, that's actually not the footage I wanted. Nia's like, oh, don't you dare. And then Bianca's like, roll it. And then they showed the footage of the whole My Hole incident thing. And that was happening, which is the only good thing Nia Jax has done in her career. That funny little one-liner. When the video package stops playing and the camera's back on the ring, Nia and Shayna kind of attack Bianca and Sasha. They kind of fend it off. Sasha and Shayna kind of break apart, and then Bianca and Nia break apart. Nia ends up on the apron. Sasha comes over to help Bianca, and they pretty much recreate the whole thing from Raw. They take her legs out, she lands on the apron, and then she doesn't say it this time, but she's like selling it. Then they get into the ring, and then they have a kind of tag team maneuver on Shayna, which was Bianca picked her up for kind of like the glam slam that Beth Phoenix used to do, and then dropped her into a knee from Sasha, which looked pretty clean, and Shayna sold it pretty well. So, because Shayna's great, by the way, she should be pushed more, but it is what it is. And then they kind of like look strong. You made the tag champions look a little bit weak there, but it is what it is. I mean, it is a women's champion and a Rumble winner, so it's acceptable, at least. But yeah, man. Then they showed Cesaro and Bryan talking backstage, not playing audio. The commentary was like hyping up the main event or something, but they were just talking backstage. Cesaro was kind of feeling the effects of Seth's attack. He was like, rotating his shoulder to make sure it was working okay, stuff like that, seeing what his pain was at. Then we had the Dirty Dogs versus Cesaro and Bryan in a chamber qualifier. Now, before we get into this match, I'll explain to you why I said that I disliked it as soon as I heard of it. Cesaro and Bryan should 100% be in the chamber, right? So you're probably thinking, oh, that's fine. There's a clear winner, and that's Cesaro and Bryan. Here's the thing. The clear winner is Cesaro and Bryan, which means the tag team champions can't beat a put-together random tag team that's not a real tag team. Granted, it's Bryan and Cesaro, right? That is fair. That is Bryan and Cesaro. They're really good, but they should be winning because they're an actual tag team. You know what I mean? If Cesaro or Bryan was WWE champion right now, like Sasha is, or one of them won the Rumble, like fair enough. Yeah, that's fine. But they don't have that in their favor, like the Sasha and Bianca segment with the women's tag team champions earlier. This is just two really, really good singles guys. One of them who couldn't beat the other, being put together randomly for a tag match. You could argue, they're extra motivated because it's a qualifier, but then Dirty Dogs would also be more motivated, and they're an actual tag team. Granted, they are a put together tag team, but they've been teaming for a little bit. They have a tag team name. They're developing chemistry. So for all intents and purposes, they should be winning a match against a thrown together tag team. However, you can't really do that because as much as I love both Ziggler and Rude, you can't have them in the Elimination Chamber. So you either have to make your champions look weak to put the people who should be in the match, or you keep your champions strong to make the people who should be in the match and who should be higher up on the card look weak. It's kind of a lose-lose in a way for me personally. So I didn't really like that. They had this spot on the outside where Rude attacked Cesaro, sending him down. Then he got thrown out by Bryan. Rude was in front of Cesaro on the outside. Bryan goes for a dive. Rude moves out of the way. Bryan dives onto Cesaro. Rude throws Bryan into the steps. Ziggler comes around, throws Cesaro into the steps. And then we get a shot up the ramp to Sammy and Corbin coming down, and then we go to commercial, and then we come back from commercial. The match itself was good. I mean, everybody involved in the match are good wrestlers. They were building to the Cesaro hot tag for the whole thing, and then when he got in, he had a really good hot tag, and then the match ended up finishing with him hitting the torture rack, and then dropping it into a backbreaker onto his knee, onto Ziggler. Then he does the swing into the sharpshooter, and Ziggler almost immediately submits. Ziggler can take the pins for Rude. I mean, either of them can take the pins pretty much. Ziggler maybe should be taking them a bit more because he's kind of lower down on the pecking order of the two overall, just because of how he's been booked and how they dropped the ball with him, because he should be a guy who's in the main event, but they didn't trust him after his concussions or whatever the story is. That's what the reports were. There might be other stuff. They might have just been like, hey, you sell really good. We're not going to let you win. You have to lose because you sell that well. It could be a lot of things. You'd have to ask the people involved directly to see what it is, but they're never going to reveal that. At least not now. Maybe when they've retired or something, but I don't know. Jay then hits Cesaro with a chair while Cesaro celebrating. Sammy and Corbin start attacking Bryan. Then Sammy and Corbin start attacking Jay. Then Sammy starts attacking Corbin. Then they kind of start getting mixed up. Kevin Owens' music hits. He comes down, stunners everybody. And then they show Roman watching backstage like a normal human being in a chair directly onto the TV with Heyman there beside him. And then Kevin Owens starts looking into the camera. He grabs a chair, he puts it down, he sits down. He's like, are you watching, Roman? I'm not done with you. You're not getting rid of me, kind of thing. Into the hard cam, and then we go off the air. Match quality for the main event was good. The whole Kevin Owens coming in and hitting everybody with a finisher keeps him looking strong, which isn't necessarily needed because I don't like that they're still building towards Kevin Owens and Roman. For me, that's reached its conclusion, personally. What I do think they might end up doing is do like Bryan wins the Chamber, Bryan faces Roman, but Roman immediately not buries him, but like destroys him. And then he's like, hey, I mean, I know why you had it set up that way. It's because I've been telling Paul for months on Talking Smack that I'm going to beat you. And every time I do, he's real quiet because he believes that he knows I will beat you. And in a fair one-on-one match, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe Roman will be like, oh, respect me or stop questioning me kind of thing. And then, do a match with Bryan at Fastlane because they're doing the 2 pay-per-views. And then probably Edge at Mania is where they're going towards, I think. Yeah, overall SmackDown was kind of okay. I don't like Sammy and Corbin in the Elimination Chamber. My picks for the Elimination Chamber probably would have been Kevin Owens. Jay does make sense, but have him win a qualifier because he hasn't won in like 4 months, I'm pretty sure, some shit like that. Like, he hasn't won a singles match in a long time, so you kind of should probably give him a win. I would have done 6 individual qualifiers, personally. Or, if you did want to do a tag team one, like, that's fine. Just don't make them 2 random tag team ones and have 2 of the people have no business being in. My 6 probably would have been Kevin Owens is fine in there because he's in that area. I wouldn't advance the feud necessarily. I would have Roman kind of ignore Kevin Owens and just Kevin Owens be like, he thinks he's done with me. When I win that Chamber, he's going to think again. And then Roman just doesn't acknowledge him. That's probably what I'd do with that. But definitely have Kevin Owens in that. I would have had Bryan. I would have had Cesaro. I probably would have put Seth in there. Jay in there as well, and then put Shinsuke in there would have been my 6. Granted, I would have liked somebody like Murphy in there, or like Aleister Black if they recognize that he's still on their roster. I don't know what the fuck they think they're doing. They're not using Aleister Black. I don't know if he's hurt or if they're just being like, hey, your wife said she wasn't going to stop Twitch, so we fired her, and that means you don't get to work anymore because Vince is very petty. You know what I mean? So I don't know what they're doing with Aleister Black. I would really like it if they actually, booked him and pushed him because he's fantastic. Maybe let him go back to NXT because there were reports that he wanted to go back and they said no. So that just let him go back to NXT. So, Triple H actually books him and uses him to, his potential. But yeah, my 6, like I said, would have been Bryan, Cesaro, Shinsuke, Seth, Kevin Owens, and Jay. Would have been my 6 probably. Sammy, it kind of makes sense. It's okay, but I don't want him in there personally. I don't think it makes enough sense to put him in there. Corbin makes no sense to have in there. So those 2 shouldn't be in there at all. So I think they got two entrants completely wrong for the SmackDown one. The Billy Kay stuff I didn't like. It just keeps diminishing people on the roster. The Profits stuff isn't a big deal. It's more of a personal thing with me thinking they should do a lot more with Gable, but for my personal preference, I didn't like Gable losing 2 weeks in a row. I don't think you need Profits to win clean in a match like that. Just have them lose clean once, and then you can, build to, whatever. I don't really... The promos were fine. Cesaro and Seth looks like a good, match. I hope that they don't have Seth attack Cesaro to get into the Chamber. I'm worried that they'll do that because I think that a good Chamber performance helps build up Cesaro. The way they booked him in the tag match helped build him up because they built to the hot tag and then they did the hot tag at the right time, and then he fucking exploded out of the hot tag and then got the clean submission win. So I think a good Rumble performance from Cesaro where maybe he's like the number 1 person and then he makes it to the final 2 and just loses or something like that might be good. You know what they might end up doing? They might have Cesaro win that and then Shinsuke kind of come out and screw him against Roman or something. I don't know. Or not Shinsuke, sorry, Seth. You know what I mean? They might do that. They have a lot of things that they can do, but yeah. the show seemed better in my head before I looked through everything, and I had issues with more stuff than I thought I would. 6 or 7 out of 10. It wasn't good. It wasn't shit. It was just kind of like meh. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, the in-ring was good. You know what I mean? But the rest of it was kind of like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why? Maybe you need a little bit bigger of a roster. Or, I mean, even if they have the roster, I'm pretty sure Mojo Rawley is on the SmackDown roster. Just have him come and put somebody over every couple weeks. You know what I mean? Like, jobbers exist for a reason. Jobbers are there so that there's somebody designated to give losses to. But then again, maybe you could argue that Liv and Ruby and, Gable and Otis are the jobbers, which would suck because they should not be. Otis, maybe, whatever. But like Gable and Riot Squad, come on, man. Yeah, 6 or 7 out of 10. I guess I'll just go down the middle and do a 6.5 out of 10. I just didn't like some of the booking decisions. The in-ring again was fine. It was good at some points too, right? Just the booking decisions I don't really understand. I don't like the half-hearted, you guys get in and then you guys have to qualify. I don't like that. It's better than they did it on Raw because they gave reasonings. But everybody needs to qualify, or everybody would have had to, or the people who were put in should have had to earn it already. You know what I mean? They earned a number one contendership at the last pay-per-view kind of thing. Or they did this, they did that, they did whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe they have a rematch clause that they like I said earlier, like just have them have a reason for being in there if you're just going to put them in. Don't just be like, hey, you did really good against Roman a few months ago, Jay. Let's give you another shot. You know what I mean? Kevin, you've done really good against Roman despite coming up short. Let's give you another shot, because then it's just a handout. You know what I mean? I like that he did try to justify it and be like, hey, they took him to the limit, maybe in this setting that they can get the win. Like, yeah, that's okay. That's better than just saying, hey, these guys used to be former champions, put them in. Or, hey, these guys are in the Rumble just because they can. You know what I mean? Just, I don't like the mix and matching. I didn't like the Billy Kay stuff just because they're kind of like, it's not going anywhere. They're just kind of using it week on week to give other people wins when Liv and Ruby shouldn't be the ones losing. I don't like that Gable's not being taken seriously. I don't like that Sammy and Corbin are in the chamber. I don't like that they made the tag team champions look weak. Not entirely weak. It's just that's a loss that you didn't have to give to your tag team champions against a makeshift team. You know, it's just it was unnecessary. It was needless, pretty much. It's not the most damaging thing in the world. It is Cesaro, who they're building, and Bryan, who has been built. It's just, it's not necessary to give your tag team champions a loss like that. You know what I mean? At least not in my opinion, not in a tag team match. Maybe if you want to have Dolph and Ziggler break up and each have singles matches to qualify and each of them lose, that's fine. They're the tag team champions, which means they're at their best together. That's why they have the tag team belts. Put them, separate. It just puts over how well they get together. You know what I mean? As a tag team, it's just singles matches for qualifiers would have been better if you do want to have your champions, your tag team champions, lose the matches, in my opinion. I think I'll just stick with the 6.5. It wasn't shit or anything like that, in my opinion. It's just, it wasn't very good. It was just kind of like, you're kind of there, but like, you just made a lot of questionable decisions. So it was a disappointing SmackDown, I'll say. A big highlight is that Cesaro is being treated like a big deal still. It's just so much like the Intercontinental style stuff. Like Shinsuke literally won a gauntlet for all intents and purposes, and now he's not even in the chamber. It's just, there's a lot of decisions that are kind of, mind-boggling a little bit. So yeah, I'll stick with the 6.5 for my rating of SmackDown. That's my rating. Let me know what you guys thought of SmackDown down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with what I said. Let me know what your rating of the show would be. Like I said in the beginning, if you'd like to support me in the channel, you can do so over at Patreon, first link in the description. If you'd like to check out some of the other stuff I do on the channel, there will be links at the end cards and on the playlist section of my channel. I have a GM mode series that I actually book storylines for, so if you want to see how I'd book storylines, to try and compare, see if I'm a hypocrite or not, because I might be, I don't know. I don't know if I've done the stuff that I've complained about. I might have. I genuinely can't really remember. But yeah, if you guys want to see how I'd book wrestling shows, you can go check those out. I do mainly gameplay stuff on the channel. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so. The link will be in the description. Please sponsor me, Peace Tea, obligatory sponsor me gimmick, of course. Be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, because YouTube likes to zuck your boy. And I'll put my videos in your sub boxes, so by pressing that nice old bell icon, you'll get a push notification anytime I do upload, and you'll never have to miss it. And yeah, man, hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, share it to all your friends, comment down below, all that good shit. And I'll see you guys next time.
We